Hello, everybody, and welcome to Black Excellence Rebuild Honestly. I am extremely excited to present this panel to you all, this panel of women in civic leadership. We host these conversations once a month to spark engagement, to introduce new professionals within Kansas City to you all, and to really have transparent conversations surrounding economic development within Kansas City that affects the Black community. This panel of ladies who have graciously given us their time to speak with us all held esteemed positions, and I feel like collectively they will be able to give all of us a transparent understanding into what it takes to be a civic leader and what type of hurdles they have had to overcome as a woman in leadership, and how they were able to overcome them, because every last one of them has been able to do so. So without further ado, I want to bring in one of our partners, Beth Felsky, a part of the Appointments Project, to kind of give you guys a little bit of insight about the Appointments Project. And then from there, she'll introduce our moderator, Marshanna Smith.
Thank you, Craig. I am so excited to be part of this conversation today and hear from our amazing panel of women leaders. Based on research, United We has established the Appointments Project to increase the number of women serving on boards and commissions and decrease the barriers that prevent them from doing so. As a critical component of United We's mission, we know the importance of diverse women serving on boards and commissions in advancing women's economic and civic leadership. Our work with Jackson County is a prime example of what can happen when organizations and community comes together to increase gender parity on boards and commissions. The county has made it a priority to engage citizens with their user-friendly website, listings of boards and commission opportunities, their board application, and great accessible staff to answer questions regarding appointment opportunities and vacancies. Jackson County also values partnership. The Appointments Project in Jackson County earlier this year came together and partnered with Black Excellence, Sister Circle, The Links, to provide a training for women who were interested in civic service and really just kind of talk about the opportunities to get engaged in civic service by serving on boards and commissions. So as a result of this partnership and training, 16 women in the Kansas City area have been appointed through the Appointments Project in the region. Half of those are Jackson County appointments. Over 60 women attended a training to learn about serving on boards and commissions in Jackson County. Nearly 20 women applied to Jackson County boards and commissions, and 8 were appointed. 3 of the 8 Jackson County appointments are women of color. A variety of appointments and vacancies were filled. These appointments include the Combat Commission, the Pension Plan Board, the Mental Health Fund Board, the Land Trust Board, and the Jackson County Ethics, Human Relations, and Citizens Complaints Commission. And you'll have the opportunity to hear from one of our recent appointees, Mary, here in just a few minutes. We are grateful for the leadership of County Executive Frank White Jr. and the signing of an executive order for 12 weeks paid family leave for Jackson County employees. In clearly he is keeping in mind what is important to women, children, and their families. Through the Appointments Project partnership with Jackson County, I've had the honor to work with County Executive Frank White Jr. and his amazing staff, including Marshanna Smith. Marshanna Smith has an extensive background in journalism and news. She is a University of Kansas graduate, go Jayhawks, and currently serves as Public Information Officer for Jackson County. She is a leader, supporter, and voice for women, and plays an instrumental role in empowering more women to serve in civic leadership roles in the community. Please welcome our moderator, Marshanna Smith.
Beth, thank you so much for that kind introduction, and welcome to everyone who is watching us for this panel tonight. I appreciate your kind words, Beth. It has been an honor to work with you and the Appointments Project on this great partnership, and just to hear the success that we've had in the short few months is very rewarding. So thank you so much for that kind introduction, and we're just ready to press forward and keep bringing more qualified and community-minded women to boards and commissions at Jackson County. So thank you very much, and thank you for being a part of this panel discussion. It is an honor and a pleasure for me to be here on behalf of Jackson County and Jackson County Executive Frank White Jr. As you heard Beth say, it has been his priority to increase the number of women who serve on the county's boards and commissions. It's important for him that Jackson County reflects the diverse community that it serves. And as you heard Beth say, that is how our partnership began with the Appointments Project and with one of our community partners, Black Excellence KC. I am proud to be your moderator for the Women in Civic Leadership Panel Discussion tonight. And we hope that this conversation only allows other women to feel inspired and empowered to be civic leaders as well. And we have 5 dynamic women who are civic leaders who are here to talk honestly about civic leadership and what it took for them to get to where they are today. So without further ado, I am honored now to introduce the panelists for your Women in Civic Leadership discussion. First, before we get started, I'm going to call them up individually, and I'm going to ask each of our panelists to introduce themselves, give their job title, their current and or board service appointments. And I love brunch, breakfast. It's my favorite food. So I'm going to ask them to share what their favorite breakfast and or brunch food is. So they didn't know that beforehand. So hopefully they're able to respond to that. So first, I would like to introduce Alissa Canady as a part of our panel discussion. Good evening. Oh, you might, there you go. I had to unmute myself.
Good evening, Marshanna. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. So if you could just give us your job title, your current government and or board service appointment, and what your favorite breakfast or brunch food is.
Okay, awesome. Again, my name is Alissa Canady. I'm the managing attorney at the Canady Law Firm here in Kansas City, Missouri. My public appointed board, I serve as chairwoman of the Kansas City TIF Commission, Tax Increment Financing Commission, and my favorite brunch food is French toast.
Ooh, that's a good one. One of my favorites as well. Thank you so much for being here. We look forward to hearing what you have to share with the panelists during the discussion tonight. Next, I would like to introduce McCain, Bryant, Macklin to the panel discussion. Good evening, McCain.
Good evening. Nice to see you both.
Nice to see you.
Thank you for having me on this panel this evening. So McCain Bryant Macklin, I'm the Director of Policy and Strategic Initiatives at the Health Forward Foundation. I've been there for just a little over a year now. My current public board service is the Economic Development Corporation of Kansas City. And my favorite brunch food would have to be those made to order right in front of you omelets.
Ooh, good choice. Good choice. Thank you as well for taking time out of your busy schedule to share your experiences for civic leadership tonight. We appreciate it. Next to the panel, Melissa Patterson Hazley is with us. Good evening, Dr. Hazley.
Happy to be here. Thank you, Marshanna, for moderating this event. My name is Melissa Patterson Hazley. As you know, I am a senior researcher at the Institute for Human Development at UMKC. And my board service, it's a lot. I'm almost embarrassed to list them, but I'll say I am vice chair of Central City Economic Development Board, which I am a Jackson County appointee. And I also am on the LCRA board, among others, but those are the 2 that are most active right now. And my favorite breakfast food I'm forgetting what it's called, but I like the smoked salmon with the capers and red onion. I go for that every time.
Sounds good to me. I'll try it. Next to the panel discussion, we have Representative Ashley Bland Manlove. Hey there.
Hey there. Evening, ladies. How are you all?
Great.
Well, my name is State Representative Ashley Bland Manlove. That's my job. And my board is I am chair of the Missouri Legislative Black Caucus. So that's a collective body in the State House. And surprisingly, Dr. Patterson, my favorite is the salmon as well, but I put some honeydew on the side of mine. I like to keep my fruit going, so.
Add a little healthiness to it, right?
Got to be.
Balanced diet. Sounds good. Thank you so much for being here, State Representative Bland Manlove. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And last, but certainly not least, we have Mary Rogan-Barnes. Mary, welcome. Good evening.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Hello, ladies. My name again is Mary Barnes, and I am the Contract and Compliance Administrator for the Port Authority of Kansas City. I was recently appointed to the Jackson County Pension Plan Board for Jackson County. And I think my favorite brunch item is definitely a good frittata or a quiche.
Well, everybody definitely has great taste in breakfast food, so we can talk after this about who's collectively cooking all this and where we can get together to fellowship a little bit more over breakfast and brunch. Again, thank you all so much for being here and sharing your experiences about civic leadership. Let's dive right into the questions. We don't want to waste any time. So before this, we were having a little bit of a discussion. Representative Bland Manlove and McCain were talking about, oh, yes, I'm here because I'm following in the footsteps of Representative Bland Manlove's grandmother. So if you, Representative Manlove, could just talk a little bit about what that experience was like. Is that what inspired you to get involved in civic leadership?
Well, I don't know if I was necessarily inspired. I was more or less voluntold from a young age with my grandmother being the first African-American woman from Kansas City elected to the State House in 1980. I was born in 86, so we were all in it. And so I grew up in the political organization that you guys know, Freedom Incorporated, at a very young age, knocking on doors and handing out flyers at the poll sites. But what that gave me was a glimpse into what issues really mattered in the community. And I saw how much my grandmother just cared. Now, my grandmother was old school, and I won't take long on this, but my grandmother was old school. So she was before these rule changes that we have now. So she would be up on the phone 3 o'clock in the morning, bailing people's children out of jail, helping people get to college, just whatever they needed. And she was a people's servant. And that's what I saw, and and that's what resonated. So that's what now brings me joy. So that's what I do.
What about you, McCain? Because I know you had a little bit of correlation with that.
Yeah, I too grew up looking at and revering Ashley's grandmother. I'm also a Freedom kid. I think my father followed Representative Bland in his presidency at Freedom Inc. So I grew up, knocking doors and being very much involved in the community, in the interests of the community. But I can remember seeing her, and she was just the embodiment of a strong woman. And there were so many forces in Freedom and leaders within our community that from a very early age, I recognized the importance of being a voice on behalf of those who might not be in rooms or have the ability to speak on their own behalves. And so, because of the privilege of having that upbringing and that foundation to start from, I felt like it was incumbent upon me to carry on that legacy.
Fantastic. And you mentioned getting more women in the room. What is it going to take to get more women around these decision-making tables, Alissa, from your experience?
I think it's important that we continue to highlight the women that are currently in those spaces to encourage and motivate other women to step in. We have to make room. Unlike Representative Manlove and McCain, I did not come from a political family. I grew up on the East Side, graduated from public schools, and wanted to make a difference in my community. But because I did not have firsthand experience about those that were in positions of leadership or politics and policy making, I took a non-traditional path to get there. But I'm just very thankful for the women who made space for me, the Gwen Grants of the Urban League, who provided a leadership development course to help me learn how to use my advocacy that I was using as a prosecutor to impact community. And so I think as we emerge in these spaces and have these conversations, we're able to expose other women, young and otherwise, about how they're able to use their gifts, talents, and treasures to make impact in community.
Dr. Patterson, Hazley, anything to add on to that?
Yeah, I would say I don't know if I have a non-traditional route or not. My last name is Hazley, so Charles Hazley was a city councilman, and then I met his son years and years later. So I wouldn't say I grew up in freedom, but I definitely became intertwined in that organization pretty significantly, even before I met my husband, shortly before I did. But I will say, in terms of women in civic leadership, I think we all know it's a pretty male-dominated space. I think when I remember I was at a Kiki Curls used to do a summer camp years ago, and I was at that camp helping chaperone it, former senator, and Miss Bland told me, she was like, "Come here," and she was like, "Now you need to get you a man that got what you got," and I was like, "Okay," it just kind of came out of nowhere, but I think kind of behind that is her recognition and our understanding that politics, civic engagement has traditionally been a male-dominated space. And so entering that space, as a woman, as a mother, as a young woman, and then as a mother, that can be pretty, intimidating. I know there's been times where I've taken my daughter to board meetings with me and she's fallen asleep on my lap. So I think encouraging women and making space for the many parts of our lives will help, remove some of the anxiety that we might have on our own. Like that opportunity and door might be open, but we might not think it fits, where we are in our lives currently. And so someone mentioned to me about my daughter being at a board meeting with me, and that, that was like, oh, that was inspiring. And so now I try to do it more often. She's a better meeting attender at this point because she's 8. But back, coming up, it was difficult because she's running around making noise. But I think many of us are moms. Some of us by choice are not, or otherwise. And so, making that a natural part of civic engagement, I think would be important too.
So I think what I hear you saying is that it's okay to be a woman with multiple things going on in her life. You don't have to, it's not going to be a perfect time to get civically engaged, and don't let whatever else you have going on, being whether it be a mom, a wife, a caregiver, anything, stop you from making your voice heard.
Yeah, absolutely. And during the test call, I was at the pool, with Addison. So I had to take the call, right there. So I think we should make that a natural part of how we engage.
So how do you go about finding where you belong, where you can be most influential on a board or in a government service? I'll ask that question with you, Mary.
I think it's good to start with something that you're interested in, or a topic or a cause, or something that you're passionate about is a starting place to me. And then you can go there and do more research. But if you know what you're interested in and you know what your cause is or your passion is, I think that will be a guiding force for you.
And you have a little bit of experience with that recently. You are one of our recent Jackson County Appointments Project's appointees to the pension board. Congratulations. Can you tell us a little bit about that process, what that was like? Had you even considered being a part of the pension board?
I think it was Alissa that was saying that she didn't really come from a political background, and neither did I. I just had parents that were very much volunteers, whether through church or committees that they were involved with, education and scholarship. So that's how I really was introduced to volunteering in the community. And so I'd gone to a training session. It was a partnership with the Jackson County Links and United Weed. And this is like when it was first introduced, probably back in 2014, they had a workshop. And so I attended that, and my interest was piqued. I'm thinking, oh, this is kind of interesting, having women, pursue these civic boards. And so I just kind of kept it at the back of my mind. But I always, I signed up for the newsletters. And so I was always like getting the updates. And when I would see these women who are appointed, I was like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be, really more involved with this and engaged. And so it wasn't until earlier this year, I went through, there was another training session, I think, in partnership with the Links. And so I said, I'm going to make up my mind. I'm going to do this. So I went through the training, the workshop, and then I actually applied for a position, and they walked you through the whole process. They showed you, okay, you can go on the city website. This is where you see the list of vacancies for the boards and the commissions, or you can go on Jackson County. So that was a very helpful process, because sometimes you don't even know where to begin or, where to look. And so I submitted my application, I submitted my resume, and then Beth really served as an advocate. She would follow up with me. She's like, have you heard anything? Because sometimes, with city and government, sometimes it's not a quick process. And so she would just periodically, she's like, okay, I'm going to reach out to all the people that you applied with, and I'm going to see, where your application is, and just see if I can move it along or just find out something. So with that, I finally made it to my interview process. So after I interviewed, then it had to be brought before a vote before Jackson County for the legislators. After they voted, then it became a unanimous vote, or however, and then it was appointed by an executive order. And so that was really that process. It was pretty seamless, maybe took about 4 months total. And then I was put in connection with our HR person who's over Jackson County, and she serves on the pension board. So she's like, here's your notebook, read. And luckily they do have training sessions as well, because I was kind of concerned when I was looking at some of the vacancies, and I was thinking, well, I really don't have much of a, financial background. And, they assured me, no, that's, you're going to be trained, you don't have to let that be an obstacle or, a barrier to what you want to do. And so I've had my first meeting, and, everything is very much explained. And, just kind of like, I take what I want, in my portfolio, and how do I want it to advance. And I just take that when I'm looking at, this is the track that we want these employees to be on. These are the increases that we would like, for their pension. And I don't know everything yet. I'm still learning. And so, but it's been a very interesting process, and I'm thankful that I, went ahead and pursued it.
Thank you so much for sharing your perspective. Hopefully that can be of some help to somebody else who's listening, who may has been a little bit reluctant to get involved or find out where they might belong, but to know that we have folks like the Appointments Project who are here to help walk women through that process, because we know how important it is to have women and their voices around all of these decision-making tables. So again, congratulations on that, and look forward to you serving in that role for a very long time. In the meantime, if you are listening with us, please feel free to comment with any questions that you may have in the comment section there. We would love to hear from you here in a few minutes once we get to our question and answer session. We talked a little bit about politics, and so my next question is for the group, so feel free to chime in and then feed off of one another. We often have, many people have, these negative images of politics. And so people are like, yes, I really want to serve. I have this drive to make a difference in my community, but politics just isn't for me. I'm not cut out for that. What would you say to that person to get them to overcome that negative perception?
So, I would say that an appointment to a board or commission is not quite politics. It's kind of like quasi politics, you are appointed by an elected, but you would want to be appointed by an elected who's appointing you because of what you bring to the table, more than you just being an extension of them, but you having some value add and independent thought, some area of expertise that's relevant to the board or commission, and the freedom to walk and thrive within that. And, I've been fortunate. The two mayors that I've served on boards and commissions in their administration have encouraged their employees to, show up as their authentic selves. I make it, pretty clear going in that, that's my expectation, that, I'm there to do a job to the best of my abilities, which, requires me to, serve the people, just like those electeds are charged to serve the people that voted or didn't vote for them. They represent the entirety of the community. I represent that community as well. And, I don't represent the appointing official to the extent that I represent the community. So that's the sort of lens or approach that I take and how I distinguish the two. I mean, sometimes it's messier than that. There are some electeds who are very iron-fisted and want you to be an extension of them, and but that's not always the case. I mean, you always have to be cognizant of who has appointed you. You don't want to embarrass them. But I don't think any of the women on this panel are puppets. So you kind of have to learn to maneuver within the confines of the system. I guess is a poor choice of words, but everything's a system. So I'll stop. I know others have thoughts on this as well.
I'll weigh in. I've had the pleasure of serving as an elected official. So my name's been on the ballot for an in-district seat as a councilwoman for the 5th District. I ran citywide in the mayoral cycle in 2019, and I recently ran for statewide office as Missouri Lieutenant Governor in this 2020 election cycle. And so I will tell you that at each level of politics, there's a different level of gamesmanship involved. And so the question is about the negative aspect of politics. People say, I don't want to get involved. I never thought I was going for public office. I always wanted to make an impact in my community. And as I mentioned, I started out as a prosecutor, leading the community justice or neighborhood prosecution in Jackson County. And my first exposure was working for an elected official, Jean Peters Baker. And I served on her executive staff, leading those initiatives, building community relationships and diversion programs and restorative justice programs. So it was a great opportunity. But it demystified what an elected official could or should be doing and the impact that role had to effectuate change in areas of greatest need in our community. So I was motivated to run for city council from that vantage point. I think I'm the first to leave the prosecutor's office and go to City Hall. And it was a great opportunity for me to make that transition. And it was a very hard fought campaign, my first election cycle. Matter of fact, I challenged a freedom candidate, a long-standing freedom candidate for that seat. And they did not make it easy for me. And I won that election by probably less than 200 votes. So the negative aspects of it are real because politics it's just politics. Somebody's got to win, somebody's not going to win. But at the end of the day, because we all are committed to serving the same community, we should align around issues and be able to work together moving forward. And so I've been able to maintain relationships after the fact. And I've had support from Freedom in subsequent races. And so I think when we talk about why people don't want to get involved, they're all for good reasons. Sometimes people don't have experience of raising money. You got to raise money. You don't have to have a bunch of money, but you got to know how to raise it. You definitely are subjecting yourself to public scrutiny. And as an elected official, it's fair game, and we don't always like that part. And some people are discouraged from doing it because they're like, well, I haven't always been perfect. Well, nobody's perfect. But what is your commitment to community, and what are you willing to demonstrate that you've overcome in commitment and further service to the community. And then I think the biggest thing is the sacrifice. The sacrifices of your personal time. We talked about the moms in this space. It's not easy. We've watched many mothers bring their kids to meetings and the time away. Look at McCain. She's got little baby Micah. He's not a baby anymore. He's up moving around and singing and stuff. But she's bringing him along while she's serving the community. While moms are at home with their kids, she's time away from her family oftentimes. Melissa the same way, Dr. Hazley the same way. And so I think when we talk about all those things strung together, it is very intimidating, which is why it's so important. We'll go back to creating space, being great mentors, being transparent in our experiences. And I am coaching candidates now, since I'm not in an elected office now, I'm doing some coaching. And I tell them, part of you building your campaign team is building your personal board of directors as well. Who's going to help you support your family while you're busy serving the community? Because kids still got to get picked up, chores got to still get done around the house, and someone's got to make sure that you're meeting your personal needs and the wellness check on you, mind, body, spirit, while you're giving so much of yourself, because that's a part that's always been overlooked sometimes too, and leadership roles. But leadership looks different for women when we step into these spaces. Many of my colleagues also practice as well as their role in the council. I did not, because the demands of my constituency were so great, and they felt like they needed someone for so much all the time. Like Representative Manlove said about her grandmother, you 2, 3 o'clock in the morning addressing people's critical needs and care. I served in that way when I was on the council. But everybody doesn't have that same leadership style, but typically women do carry those burdens and still wear multiple hats. But I would tell anyone who is anticipating wanting to get involved, if you don't want to get into the blood, sweat, and tears as the candidate, supporting the candidate, serving on boards and commissions. I've served on task force. I've served on commissions at the county and at the city level. There's opportunity at the state level and at the federal level. And so there's so many ways to get involved. Advocacy and policy. There's just a huge win that just happened, led by More Squared, that banned out of school suspension at KCPS. Well, that was advocacy work that was done by a nonprofit organization and stakeholders in community working with elected officials. So there's so many ways to be able to engage and make that impact, so you don't have as much exposure, so you can minimize some of that risk.
You bring up a good point as far as advocacy is concerned, because, we talked about, it's a lot of hard work, a lot of sacrifice, but there's obviously great reward in civic service. So I don't know if anyone would care to share a moment when they realized that their involvement in civic service had a direct impact on an issue or policy change in our community, and what that moment felt like. Because, you put in all this hard work, it's good when you can realize that, yes, I finally accomplished something that maybe I didn't think that I was going to, but I was able to really make this change for our community. Can somebody describe what that might have felt like if they've experienced that in their board service?
Which one, McCain? I have 2 in my mind.
Central City.
Okay. So yeah, the 1% sales tax that was on the ballot about 3 Aprils ago was an initiative led by the Urban Summit. It came from an idea from Charles Hazley 10 years earlier, and Karen Curls also, I think, were kind of the main 2 architects. But then there were some other people that were involved in that. Ken Backus and Clinton Adams come to mind in the Urban Summit as a organization. And so, they had the idea to create a sales tax for economic development in the community by petition initiative. And, nobody thought it was going to pass. And obviously we have, some challenges operating in a bureaucracy even today. But I think that was a victory. That was a moment politically where, a grassroots group of people didn't have a lot of money. In fact, I gave $500 to the campaign. Like, there was no money hardly. But, we were able to convince people of the importance of it. And we're seeing some of the fruits of that labor now. So that was a big victory. And then I don't want to get too specific, but there's another board that I serve on in which we've been really successful in holding developer accountable, you know, for some things that is going on in one of their buildings, and really taking a critical look at what was happening and using the tools in front of us to try and effectuate change for those people and really get an organization's behavior to align with what people need. And so that was another eye-opening moment, you know, in terms of having a small victory. And they are small. So I want to emphasize that the victories are small and they sometimes feel like they are few and far between. So once you think you have made a victory, you get there and you find out there's 5 more things you still need to do, you know, to make it work. And so you definitely have to have a long game mentality in this type of work. But one thing I want to add about shying away from the politics of it, Marshanna, is a lot of boards and commissions are not as political. So most of us are appointed by political entities and by in serving, managing boards that are political entities themselves, like the Black Caucus. But there's lots of boards and commissions that are much less political, where you still can serve and make an impact. For example, LISC. So LISC has a board, you know, that has many members. I mean, it seems like 25 members. But that's an opportunity to get involved and really guide and chime in on programs, fund availabilities that will directly impact the community that we all live in and serve. And it's much less political. It's not overtly political where someone elected has appointed you and, you know, you're going to be on the news every night, you know, from some decision that you made. So there are some opportunities for people that are politically averse. And I get it, because it can be a lot of pressure, you know. Some sort of entities, or I'll say like communities that we might have to do policy against. We have to regulate a community. That can be really, you know, political. So you can sort of pick your poison. I do want to point that out.
Yeah, I'll just piggyback on what Melissa said, and then I'm gonna turn it to Representative Bland Manlove, because I know she has a laundry list of policies that she's advanced in the legislature. But just speaking to civic service outside of political appointments, there's still the opportunity to get involved in policy. And it's striking because you'll still hear of organizations that, you know, have, you know, somewhat of a desire to have greater diversity on their board or as part of a committee or their effort, but they struggle to know any people of color or any women to populate that board with. And so, you know, being one of those people, making your interests known, that you have a willingness to serve in these capacities. Once you serve, then you continue to be asked over and over again. You need to be really good at saying no, because it's like the first time you do it, then you're on a list and everybody's tapping into you. But once you're on that list and once you're a known entity, you've got the opportunity to then open doors for other people. So it's like, oh, well, you don't know any Black women? I do. This person, this person, this person, this person. And you can help to put not just your friends, but your colleagues who you know are experienced and would add value in the game as well. And so, you know, we as women then have the opportunity to help put each other in position to influence the communities around us.
It's all very great perspective. Victories, though they may be small, you know, you keep going for the benefit of the community to effectuate even more change. So that's the driving force behind civic leadership and civic service. I wanted to bring in some current events and some current topics. I know we've talked about finding your voice and, you know, being your authentic self whenever you serve in a particular board or civic service commission. Just wanted to bring the wonderful Sha'Carri Richardson to the table, you know, the track athlete who's going to the Olympics. And we've seen a lot of people, you know, talk about her, about the way she looks and her hair and her nails and all this stuff. But she's focused on what she wants to do, and is tuning out all the noise. And I would presume that there might be, whenever you get appointed to a board, there might be some hesitancy to be your authentic self. How do you go about having that confidence in a room where you're probably the only woman and or woman of color? I don't know, Representative Manlove, if you would have any perspective to share on that.
Sorry. Oh, yes. Well, I find my voice being grounded in the voices of my constituency. They're very active, and they talk to me and email me directly. I actually had some children from Brookside Charter show up at my Jeff City office. So they will, and all of my constituency is like that. So I listen to what they say. So when you guys send out those blast emails that say, hey, don't vote for this bill, I get those. My secretary helps me tally them, and then I vote based on what that says. And that has caused me to take some pretty tough votes, which is part of the, kind of the bad side of it. You kind of got to deal with backlash from one side if you're doing good for something on the other side, sometimes. So, but the victories are when you do get those emails that are good. And so the lady who brought the children from Brookside, then a year later, after a very tough vote, sent me an email saying thank you for that vote, and that those kids at that school would really appreciate that vote. And that's what helps you find your voice. And now, the Crown Act is going on. So I started out the campaign with my hair straight and flat ironed. And now I wear my crown proudly wherever I go. Sometimes and people think of me, are you being inappropriate? No, I'm being my authentic self in the best way that I can. And I hope that inspires others to do the same as well.
What are your thoughts on that, Mary? Any insight to add to that?
I could just provide an example from my professional career. A lot of times I'm meeting with developers, construction, that field is pretty much male dominated and white. And so, I tend to just say, I'm doing my job, I'm going to do it well, and I'm not going to get distracted, because sometimes you can psych yourself up and psych yourself out, when you get caught up in, oh, I'm the only woman of color, I'm the only woman. And so I'm just, I always keep at the uppermost part of my mind that I'm here to do a job, I'm going to do it well. You need the information that I have. Normally I'm walking them through like our diversity supplier programs, or I'm walking them through the RFP process. So I just feel like, you need what I have. And so I'm going to be confident in the way that I deliver it, and not, just get pulled off track by being the only woman or being the only person of color. I mean, because sometimes it is, once you start thinking about it, sometimes maybe it can, get in your head. And when it does that, it might have a negative impact. And so if you just know that you're there to do your job and to do it well, I think that will guide you in doing a good job.
Thanks for sharing that experience with us. I know that's something that not only the 6 of us women can relate to, but many others who are watching this panel discussion right now. So appreciate you for sharing that personal experience with us. So, I mean, it's kind of a general question, but anyone want to know or explain why women, particularly women of color, are reluctant to get involved in civic leadership? I know we've talked about a number of particular reasons, but do you guys find is there one particular reason why women and women of color particularly just say, I don't want to be tapped as that one person time and time again, like McCain mentioned, when it comes to board or civic service?
I clearly not shy to take the mic. Sorry, y'all. But I think that, a lot of us are carrying the weight at home. We're starting families in our, 20s and 30s, and that's got our full attention. We're trying to establish ourselves in our career. and focused on that because, you know, civic service takes a lot of your time. And you look up and you're on 6 boards and you're like, how did I get here? And it's just, and then it's hard to pull away from, especially if you have a heart for it. It's just incredibly hard to say no. And you see an opportunity for yourself to help in every ask that's made of you. I also think that, you know, because we're either, you know, focused on the home or focused on establishing ourselves in our career, that doesn't leave time for us to be out networking and making the relationships that are necessary to get these appointments or to be asked to be on these boards. So I think that those are, you know, the major contributors to it. I think that there's some fear of the unknown as well. If it's something that you haven't done and that those around you haven't done, you might think, you know, that the barriers of entry are more steep than they really are. I think that once people know that you have an interest, they would love to sign you up. And, you know, whether it's take of your time or your skill or your money, they would gladly have it. So, you know, if you're willing, I think you just need to, you know, get out there and volunteer. As Mary said, I think that's the best first step. Find what you're interested in, volunteer, and then from there, you'll be tapped for greater and greater involvement.
Is networking a big part of that? I'm sorry, Melissa, you can go ahead and answer.
I was going to say, I mean, that's exactly where I was going to kind of take it. I think, like many things, I think relationships that you have with people often lead you to the appointment. You've worked with them in some other capacity. You've been in some conversation with them. They've seen you work on something else. And so that oftentimes leads you to the invitation to join a board. And so part of me feels like there's as much reluctance as there is to lack of relationships. I think both of those things contribute to, you know, not seeing a lot of Black women in particular on boards. I think, and McCain is right, once you do a fairly decent job on a board, you get asked all the time. And so I've started to try and just refer other people, you know, that I have relationship with, and I feel comfortable saying, oh, why don't you check out this woman? You know, she does this and she does that, and she's got a great personality and she's sharp. And so I've just tried to start diverting, you know, one of the 6 boards I'm on, give them away to somebody else, or don't take a 7th, you know, so that other people can be involved. Mm-hmm. Because there are, I mean, I can name by myself 6 women that you can appoint right now, and there's not an application necessary, to be honest. I mean, we don't need she doesn't need an application or a training. She's ready to go. And I think that's the majority of us, you know, even if we did go through that process. So yeah, I think that there's, and also I think the barrier to creating relationships is, you know, you're at work all day. So when most of the boards and commissions that we're involved in require you to have the flexibility in your work to go to those meetings during the day. A lot of them occur during, you know, a lot of them do occur during the day. And then the ones that occur during the evening, if you're a parent or a caregiver, even of an adult in your family, you've got to be hustling from pickup to drop off to the caregiver to hurrying up and cooking some food or getting people settled and then racing off to a 5:30. So, I mean, it is sort of built, this work we do, for, you know, people that are in professional positions, which is another barrier. You know, some people don't have that type of flexibility in their job, and they're sharp nonetheless. You know, they can still do it. It's just not structured in a way for that participation. And so I think that's something that should be considered. But with us serving on boards, we can start to try to push some of those meetings in a way that make them more accessible. Yeah, right. And so, you know, women, I think, and I'll wrap up, but with even with COVID, but we knew it was before, women are taking on a lot of the kind of responsibilities of the domestic, you know, types of duties. And so that's another thing that that creates those barriers to participation. But I don't think we have any shortage of Black women ready to serve. I don't.
Do you think with COVID, obviously we're doing this virtual, have you guys seen more boards and commissions start to do their meetings virtual to maybe open up that pool a little bit more and that accessibility factor? And maybe that should be more of a requirement, so you have an in-person option and a virtual option. If I can get there, great. If not, I can still contribute. What do you guys think about that?
I think that COVID thrust us into a way that really encourages more civic engagement, because you're able to attend the meetings virtually. You don't have to get childcare. You don't have to rush across town in traffic. Make sure your child has something to eat and be concerned about them being quiet in the meeting space. You can just mute your screen. And so I think for engagement, it has been really helpful, which increases exposure, right? And then I think also it has allowed us as professional women, for me, to be more efficient with my time, because I'm able to chair the TIF commission meeting, attend pre-meetings, still manage my client caseload, still do consulting work, still manage my household responsibilities, and I'm not left home yet. And so I think that, and attend some virtual meetings and topics of discussion at the state level otherwise, and I don't have to drive to Jeff City to be involved in it. So I think it definitely has improved accessibility. But I think as far as women being ready to, and I think as far as women, party from the waist down, business on the top, your leggings, your yoga pants, we've worn them out. Listen, I bought sundresses for this summer. Last summer, I didn't even buy sundresses. We're outside now in real life, but I enjoy the fact that I'm able to still be a very engaged professional and still be able to pivot, because my 20s and 30s was career. McCain talked about 20s and 30s, you're building your nest, starting a family. I'm a late bloomer in that. So now I'm all like focused on my domestic life, building my nest, and, focusing on those areas of my life. So when you reprioritize how you're spending your time, it looks differently. But I also always want to make sure that we're encouraging women to comment in the chats, to share the information, follow up with people after the meeting. So the networking is important, but the meeting before the meeting and the meeting after the meeting are very important. Having a meeting before the meeting to make sure what's on the agenda. If you're not the person in the seat, talking to the person who does have a seat at the table to make sure your idea is being adopted, or you can advocate for support before you present the idea in public. The meeting after the meeting to find out what the next steps are to create some accountability. Though that's all political. That's all inside baseball politics. And so providing more understanding for women to understand, how do you get invited to the party? How do you get to be one of the 6 on Dr. Hazley's list of women that she's suggesting for board opportunities she doesn't want? How do I get the coaching from people like myself, former elected officials, or the camp that Senator Curls used to have, or, the tutelage of Representative Manlove, who has been in Jeff City now for a couple of sessions now, to be able to get more understanding. So we've got to continue to be open. And I think social media allows us to be able to do that, because you can directly engage in the chat, on our Twitter handles, inboxing, email, and all of these women are great at being responsive. Social organizations, the Jackson County Links, I'm a member, McCain Bryant's a member as well. We're in partnership with the Appointments Project, social orgs like that, and getting to know those women who are recommending individuals to get involved. All those things are extremely important to making sure that we are making space and people are feeling welcome to be included in these conversations.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. I've been looking for any questions in the comments. I don't think we have gotten any. I just want to make sure that I'm not missing anyone asking any questions, but all of the discussion has been very helpful, very insightful. So just want to thank all of you ladies for, one, being here, finding the time to be here, and of course for your service to our community. We know you guys give it all day in and day out, and so we are just appreciative of all you guys are doing when it comes to making change for the betterment of not just women in this area, but everyone in our entire community. So Thank you all so much. Are there I'm going to get to some last thoughts here in just a second, but want everyone to know who's watching that if you are interested in learning more about different boards and commissions at Jackson County, at least, you can go to Jackson County's website. That's jacksongov.org. You can also go to the City of Kansas City's website to find out about their boards and commissions that are available there as well. Please register with the Appointments Project. So that way you can sign up, get any newsletters, information, and just like Mary talked about, get the assistance of folks like Beth Felsky, who are at the Appointments Project. And that is their main goal and their focus, to recruit women, help them through that pipeline, and get them on boards and commissions as soon as possible. So please register for the Appointments Project on their website. And then obviously follow Black Excellence KC, right? That's who brought us all here tonight. So bxkc.org, stay in touch with them for any of the latest information, board appointments, positions. If you go to their website, there's a wealth of information there and a wealth of opportunities if you're looking for something. So please check out all of those resources for you as once we leave here, and we want you to be able to go forth from here and to put a lot of this discussion into action. Speaking of action, that is going to be my last request of my wonderful panelists here. So we want to make sure that everybody that leaves is empowered, encouraged to move forward towards civic leadership and civic service. So what would be your one recommendation, your one next step for somebody who's listening, and what would that be for them to put in motion for their journey on civic leadership? I'll start with, okay, Representative Manlove.
Step one, are you registered to vote? Ask yourself that. Is your registration up to date? Okay, go to sos.mo.gov to figure that out. Step two, go to, for me, house.mo.gov. There's a button on the side. It says it's a menu. It says legislation. Look up some of that legislation and see if you don't get fired up to get civically motivated.
Great. Alissa, I'm going to put you on the spot.
One thing, be intentional. What is it that you want to accomplish? Because this is a lot of work, and passion projects are great, but you want to make sure that you are being intentional about how you get involved, so that you're working in an area of impact that really matters to you. And there's nothing wrong with kind of having a long game. Get started. Volunteer on a campaign. Go to the public meetings. But just try to figure out what really interests you, because it may not be a straight path, right? Policy is a long game. But and if you want to run for office, I will speak about that. If you want to run for office, I highly recommend you, volunteering for an elected official or working on a campaign prior to doing it.
All right, who's next?
I think one piece of advice is to make sure that in your chosen profession or where you're working, that you're doing your best and you're really taking care of that, because that's when folks will notice and you'll have built up some level of expertise with whatever you're doing in your career, and then that can be transferred to board service in ways you probably don't even imagine. Someone may recommend you think about this or think about that because of something they've seen you do in your own work. And so I think that's a good strategy to find, a niche. I've recommended women and they are puzzled, like, why would you recommend me for that? Then I have to explain it because you do this and this, and I've noticed you did that. And so, doing your own work, I think is really important for that credibility to get you in the door.
And it's
Yeah.
always good to have that recognition of someone like yourself, Melissa, who is able to see those qualities in women that they're interacting with and engaging with. Because a lot of times for ourselves, we don't see that in ourselves. So it's always that part of that mentorship program. But good to have folks like you recognizing it and then, kind of encouraging those women to get involved and giving them the confidence to do so. McCain?
I was just going to say, making your interest known and then getting your visibility up and keeping it up. Just kind of piggybacking on what some of Dr. Patterson Hazley says. Melissa, if you post on Facebook about an issue enough, then people will learn to associate you with that issue, right? So because of my job and working for a health foundation, I post often about health equity or just issues related to our work. And people reading post after post on these issues associate me as a subject matter expert on this. And so then when opportunities come up that are public health related, they tap into me because they know I'm familiar with the subject. And that's just an example. But if there's an issue that you're interested in, show that you're tracking it, post articles about it. You'll, on the one hand, be learning about it as you do it, but you'll also be raising your visibility to others that this is an issue that you're interested in and knowledgeable about. Making your interest known by doing that volunteering and showing up and going to the public meetings and even being so bold as to say, so-and-so executive director or current board member, I've got an interest in this organization as well. How can I get involved? And then their eyes will light up because they're like, oh, we can never have too many volunteers or, too many board members in queue. Let me write your name down.
Just reach out to, women that inspire you. If you don't know where to start, maybe. I think people are really good about sharing information and sharing about their experience and how they got where they are. I would start there as, reaching out.
And I just add, get you some friends. Like I've got friends just on this panel. I admire these women so much. These women have put me in position more times than I can count. I know that they are always up to the task. And if somebody's looking for an academic or somebody who does research or somebody that has experience in economic development, Melissa. If I know, that somebody law or economic development or what have you, Alissa. I mean, and know your friends, their aptitudes, know their interests, and be willing to help, elevate them when you get the opportunity to do so.
And for all of those listening who are wanting to get a great friends list like McCain has, or these ladies or people listening are able to reach out to you, our panelists, for additional insight, find you on social media. Is that okay? All right, so I hope everybody who's watching and has been listening has taken these names down. If not, you've probably seen them on Black Excellence KC's website on the flyer. Remember these names, reach out to these ladies. They're great to know, great resource to have as you explore opportunities to expand or even start your civic leadership engagement experience. So with that said, I just want to thank all of our panelists for, again, taking the time to be here tonight. I'm going to be putting in on my notes I wrote down to connect more with each of you individually as well. So I'm learning just as the rest of the other viewers are, and wish you all a great rest of your evening and much success in your civic leadership and engagement. So thank you so much for spending your time with us. Great insight. Thanks to the Appointments Project associated with United We, and of course, Craig and the staff of Black Excellence KC. Thank you, ladies, so much. Great discussion, and look forward to getting with you again soon whenever our schedules allow, right? Have a good night.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Good night.
Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us for this conversation. I appreciate everybody who has chimed in with us. These discussions, you can find them on YouTube and on Spotify on our podcast. You just type in Rebuild Honestly, and we will be happy to and we'll pop up where you can share this with your friends and with everyone. I am very, very grateful for having these women together on this panel discussion. The biggest thing that I took away from it is that support. Me as a Black man, I need to provide support to strong women within my generation who want to accomplish a lot of these things that these ladies have been able to accomplish. And having two daughters is definitely great to see that I can be able to associate them with ladies like this so that they can be able to grow and reach whatever goals that they want to reach. Again, I appreciate everybody for joining us. Be on the lookout for more conversations around this. Take heed to those action items. A lot of the links that were provided within this conversation are in the comments. So please, and if you have any questions, you can reach out to myself at info@bskc.org. Reach out to Marshanna at Jackson County. Reach out to Beth at the Appointments Project with United We. And all of us collectively are here to encourage you and to provide support to you in your journey as you try to serve our community, or as you wish to serve our community with us. I appreciate everybody for joining us once again, and you all have a good one and good night. Hopefully, yeah.